What does it mean to be a woman? Not the biology part, the deeper part. The part that shapes how you see yourself, how the world sees you, how you move through life. For centuries, this question was whispered in private, hidden in diaries, buried in silence. Then came Simone de Beauvoir. She didn't whisper. She roared. In 1949, she published a book that changed everything. The Second Sex. 2 simple words that shook the world. Her message was clear, revolutionary, dangerous. Women are not born inferior. They are made inferior. And if they are made that way, they can be unmade that way too. This is her story. The story of a woman who dared to ask the hardest questions, who refused to accept the world as it was, who showed us that freedom isn't given, it's taken. Paris, 1908. A baby girl is born into a world that already has plans for her. Be quiet, be polite, be pretty, marry well, have children, disappear into the background of someone else's life. This was the script, the only script. But Simone de Beauvoir was never good at following scripts. From the moment she could think, she questioned everything. Why do girls play with dolls while boys play with soldiers? Why do women stay home while men go out and conquer the world? Her family was wealthy, Catholic, traditional. They expected her to follow the rules. But Simone had other ideas. She read everything she could get her hands on. Philosophy, literature, history. She devoured books like they were food. And maybe they were. Food for a mind that was hungry for something more. At 21, she took the most difficult philosophy exam in France. Only the smartest students even attempted it. Most failed. Simone didn't just pass. She came in second place in the entire country. The person who beat her? A young man named Jean-Paul Sartre. That defeat would change her life forever. When Simone met Sartre, it wasn't love at first sight. It was something deeper, recognition. Here was someone who thought like her, who questioned like her, who refused to accept easy answers. They talked for hours about life, about freedom, about what it means to exist in a world that tries to define you before you can define yourself. Their relationship defied every rule of their time. They never married. They lived separately. They saw other people. They shared everything and owned nothing. The world called it scandalous. They called it freedom. But while Sartre's fame grew quickly, Simone had to fight for every bit of recognition. She was always Sartre's girlfriend before she was the philosopher or the writer. It would have been easy to disappear into his shadow. Many women did. Simone chose differently. She chose to shine her own light. In the 1940s, Simone began to notice something. A pattern that had been invisible to her before. Women everywhere were living half-lives. They were defined not by who they were, but by who they belonged to. Someone's daughter, someone's wife, someone's mother, never just themselves. She watched her female friends sacrifice their dreams for marriage. She saw brilliant women reduce themselves to make men comfortable. She witnessed talent wasted, voices silenced, potential buried, and she realized something that would change everything. This wasn't natural. This wasn't the way things had to be. This was a choice, a collective choice that society had made. And if it was a choice, it could be changed. But first, someone had to say it out loud. Someone had to break the silence. 1949, the year everything changed. Simone de Beauvoir published The Second Sex. 700 pages of pure intellectual fire. The book's most famous line became a battle cry. One is not born, but rather becomes a woman. Think about that for a moment. Really think about it. She was saying that being a woman isn't about biology. It's about what society teaches you, what it expects from you, what it forces you to become. Little girls aren't naturally quieter than little boys. They're taught to be quiet. Women aren't naturally less ambitious than men. They're taught that ambition is unattractive. Women aren't naturally worse at math or science. They're taught that these subjects aren't for them. Every limitation, every stereotype, every natural difference, all of it was constructed, built, taught, enforced. And what is built can be torn down. The reaction was immediate and explosive. The Catholic Church banned the book. Critics called it dangerous, immoral, a threat to civilization itself. But women read it, and for the first time, they saw their lives clearly. The personal struggles they thought were their own failures, they were actually part of a larger system, a system designed to keep them small. The book sold out instantly. It was translated into dozens of languages. It started conversations in living rooms and universities around the world. Simone de Beauvoir had lit a fire, and it was spreading. Simone wasn't just a feminist. She was an existentialist. Existentialism sounds complicated, but it's actually simple. It says that life has no predetermined meaning. We're not born with a purpose. We create our own purpose through our choices. This was revolutionary thinking. It meant that nothing was fixed. Nothing was inevitable. You weren't born to be a wife and mother. You chose to be one, or you chose not to be. You weren't born to be quiet and submissive. You learned to be that way. And you could learn to be different. For Simone, this philosophy was personal. She had chosen to be a philosopher, a writer, a free woman. These weren't roles that existed for women in her time. She had to create them. But she also understood something that many philosophers missed. Freedom isn't equally distributed. A wealthy white woman has more choices than a poor woman. A woman in Paris has more options than a woman in rural Algeria. Real freedom, she argued, means fighting for everyone's freedom, not just your own. Simone lived her philosophy. She didn't just write about freedom. She embodied it. She traveled the world. She had love affairs. She wrote novels and essays and memoirs. She spoke at universities and protests. She opposed the war in Algeria. She fought for women's right to choose. She marched for civil rights. But she also wrote about the small, daily ways that women were controlled. The subtle pressure to smile more, to speak less, to take up less space. She understood that the personal is political, that the way you're treated in your own home affects the way you're treated in the boardroom, that the messages you receive as a little girl shape the woman you become. Nothing was too small to examine. Nothing was too personal to discuss. She wrote about her own life with brutal honesty. Her relationships, her mistakes, her fears, her aging body, her grief. She refused to be the perfect woman, the ideal feminist, the flawless role model. She was human, complicated, real, and in that honesty, she gave other women permission to be human too. Simone's ideas didn't stay in France. They traveled to America, where they inspired the women's liberation movement of the 19th 1950s, to Latin America, where women fighting for basic rights found strength in her words, to Asia and Africa, where her ideas mixed with local struggles for independence and equality. Each culture translated her message differently, but the core remained the same. You are not what the world tells you to be. You are what you choose to become. The ripple effects are still spreading today. Every time a woman chooses her career over marriage, every time a woman speaks up in a meeting, every time a woman says no to something she doesn't want. That's Simone's legacy in action. As Simone aged, she didn't retreat into private life. She didn't become more conservative or careful. She became more radical. She wrote about aging in a society that worships youth, about being a woman whose value was supposedly tied to her appearance and fertility. She refused to disappear quietly. She kept writing, kept thinking, kept challenging. In 1980, Jean-Paul Sartre died. They had been together for 50 years, not in the traditional sense, but in the way that mattered most to them, as intellectual companions, as partners in the search for truth. His death devastated her, but it didn't silence her. She wrote about grief, about loss, about what it means to continue living when your greatest companion is gone. Even in pain, she kept asking the hard questions. Simone de Beauvoir died in 1986, but her revolution didn't die with her. Today, her questions are more relevant than ever. What does it mean to be a woman in the age of social media? When images of perfection bombard us every day? What does it mean to be a woman in the workplace, when we're still fighting for equal pay and respect? What does it mean to be a woman in politics, when our voices are still dismissed as too shrill, too emotional, too much? Simone would tell us that these are the right questions to ask, that the discomfort we feel when asking them is a sign that we're on the right track. She would remind us that freedom is not a destination. It's a journey, a daily choice, a constant struggle. And she would ask us, what are you going to do with your freedom today? If Simone de Beauvoir were alive today, what would she say? She would say that the work is not done, that every generation must fight its own battles for freedom. She would look at the young women struggling with body image and say, your worth is not determined by your appearance. She would look at the women trying to balance career and family and say, you don't have to be perfect at everything. You just have to be true to yourself. She would look at the women facing discrimination and say, your anger is justified. Use it. She would look at all of us and say, stop asking for permission. Start taking action. Because that's what freedom is. Not the absence of problems, but the power to face them. Not the guarantee of success, but the right to try. Here's what Simone de Beauvoir understood that many people still don't get. Feminism isn't about hating men. It's about freeing everyone from the prison of gender roles. When women are free to be strong, men are free to be vulnerable. When women are free to be ambitious, men are free to be nurturing. When women are free to choose their own path, everyone benefits. The patriarchy doesn't just hurt women, it hurts everyone. It forces people into boxes that don't fit. It wastes human potential. It creates a world where half the population is undervalued and the other half is under pressure. Simone's vision was bigger than women's rights. It was human rights, the right to be yourself, whoever that might be. So here we are, decades after Simone de Beauvoir first asked her revolutionary questions. The world has changed. Women can vote, work, own property, control their own bodies. Things that seemed impossible in her time are now taken for granted. But the deeper questions remain. Are you living your life or the life others expect you to live? Are you making choices based on fear or on love? Are you using your voice or staying silent to keep others comfortable? Are you supporting other women or competing with them? Are you free or are you just comfortable? These questions don't have easy answers. They require thought, reflection, courage. But that's exactly what Simone would want. She didn't want to give you answers. She wanted to teach you to ask better questions. One is not born, but rather becomes a woman. This sentence changed the world. But it's not just about women. It's about all of us. We are not born into fixed roles. We become who we are through our choices, our actions, our daily decisions about how to live. Every day, you are becoming. The question is, what are you becoming? Are you becoming more yourself or less yourself? Are you becoming more free or more trapped? Are you becoming someone who lifts others up or someone who tears them down? Simone de Beauvoir believed that freedom is not a gift. It's a responsibility. We have the responsibility to free ourselves and to help others find their freedom too. The revolution she started continues in every woman who chooses her own path, in every person who refuses to be limited by others' expectations, in every voice that speaks truth to power. Her legacy is not in the books she wrote or the ideas she shared. Her legacy is in the lives that have been changed, the minds that have been opened, the possibilities that have been expanded. You are part of that legacy. Every time you choose courage over comfort, truth over silence, freedom over conformity, you are continuing her work. The question she asked all those years ago is still the most important question of all. What will you do with your freedom? The answer is up to you. But whatever you choose it consciously. Choose it boldly. Choose it with the knowledge that your choice matters. Because you are not born who you are. You become who you are. And that becoming never stops. That is Simone de Beauvoir's greatest gift to us. Not the answers, but the questions. Not the destination, but the journey. The journey of becoming yourself. The most radical act of all.